Well, Rob Oliver's walk with the Lord, he started when he was 10 years old. And he's been through some ups and downs, including some really intense dealings with God when he sustained a paralyzing injury at the age of 21. Rob here has written 2 best-selling books about his life experiences. They're up here and they're for sale. You can buy the first one I'm going to talk about for $10 and the other for $15. He does take credit cards, but listen to these titles. I just told Rob, these have got to be one of the most meaningful and greatest titles of all time. Rob has written these 2 books, Still Walking and Still Falling. Wow, what a blessing. He's an internationally acclaimed motivational speaker, twice recognized with the annual, quote, Best of Awards here in Pittsburgh. However, his true passion is sharing the work of God in his own life. And so sharing his story with us today is Rob. We welcome Rob Oliver.
Thank you guys very much. I'll have to say, Tim has given me a time frame to work with. I will caution you about this though. My dad was a preacher for many, many years. And so I remember this story that we tell about him is a little kid who comes to church for the very first time and my dad is speaking. And the kid is just curious about everything that's going on. And so my dad stands up at the beginning and he's holding the hymnal in his hand and the little kid bumps his mom. He's like, hey mom, what's that mean? What's that mean? What's going to happen? And mom says, well, he's choosing our opening hymn for the day. And sure enough, he selects a number and they sing the song. And then he stands up and he folds his hands and he closes his eyes and the little kid bumps his mom. Mom, what's that mean? What's that mean? What's he going to do? He's going to open the service in prayer. And sure enough, he goes ahead and prays. And he stands up at the podium and he opens up his Bible. Mom, what's that mean? What's that mean? He's going to choose the reading for the day. So sure enough, he reads from the Bible. And as he's reading, he takes off his watch and he lays it down beside his Bible on the podium. And the little kid bumps his mom. What's that mean? What's that mean? And his mom says, son, that don't mean nothing. So I'll try and watch the time as we're going. What I'd love to do is just share with you what God has done in my own life. We'll have a couple of minutes where I can share where you guys can ask some questions, and then I will give you kind of a closing thought for the day. As Tim mentioned, my walk with the Lord started when I was around 10, and went through some ups and downs, and let me kind of share with you exactly how I ended up in the chair. I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. My best friend, his parents, their hearts were bigger than their brains because they invited him and all of his friends to come for their timeshare. They had a week at a timeshare, and so his 2 sisters and him and like 16 other kids all packed into this little condo. And there were 3 bedrooms. His parents got one, my parents got one, the girls got one, and all of us guys slept out in the living room. We've been doing this for a number of years. This particular year that we went, the way that things work down there, if the water is too rough, they actually put up red flags along the beach and it just says don't go in. There had been a storm that went by offshore. The red flags were up all week. And finally on Friday they came down. And I'm like, oh, this is great. The girls decided that the water was still a little bit too rough for them to handle, so they weren't in. But us guys, 21 years old, it's all about adrenaline. It's all about a rush, whatever you can do to get that feeling and get your heart pumping, right? So we were body surfing, which is surfing without a surfboard. So if you don't know what that is, you've seen the little kid, the boogie boards, right? It's like that, only there's no boogie board. It's just you and the water. You swim out just beyond where the waves are crashing. You tread water and you're looking, and you can see the waves that are coming, like the 2, 3, 4 waves that are out there. And then the goal is this. When you select the wave that you want, you begin to swim towards the shore, and the goal is for you to arrive at the point where the wave breaks, at the exact time that it breaks, and then it just catches you, and it carries you right into the beach. Phenomenal. I could see like maybe 3 or 4 waves out there. There's a big one coming in. I'm like, this is good. So I'm waiting, I timed everything out perfectly, I'm swimming towards the shore, it comes, I catch it right when it breaks, and it's carrying me in towards the shore. Now here's the problem, pretty soon something happens where instead of it carrying me down in the bottom of the wave, which is where I used to be, I realize I'm up at the top. And now all of a sudden, the force of the wave, instead of it carrying me forward, pushes down. And I go head first right into the bottom, hit my head in the sand, I feel something pop, I hear something crunch, and then everything for me goes cold. I will say this, there is nothing in life that is better than knowing the Lord when you find yourself looking death square in the eye. Because I can't move. Legs, arms, nothing. I knew how to swim, I knew how to save other people if they were drowning. But for me now, I'm in a place where there's nothing. It's wait, hope, and pray. I'm kind of rolling around under the water. My face clears for a quick second. I get a breath, then back under. One of my good friends saw my face, and when I didn't stand up, he knew something was wrong, and he came in after me. I will tell you this, my son is here today, and he's somewhat embarrassed as I tell this part of the story. It was 1993, and in 1993, it was acceptable to wear brightly colored clothing. I was wearing a pair of bright purple swim trunks with neon yellow trim around them. It had an aqua pocket, and it had like this bright blue patch on the side of it. The thing looked like it needed battery because it was just that bright. The important thing about it, though, is that bathing suit saved my life. Because when my buddy comes in looking for me, he doesn't see me. What he sees is the bright purple swim trunks. He comes to where I am and pulls me out. I will tell you this. When I go and I'm able to visit different churches and share my testimony of God's dealing in my life, I actually think that story has a lot of parallels to my relationship with God. Because when I was growing up, right, I went to church all the time. My dad's a preacher, for crying out loud. And so he was an itinerant pastor, kind of went around, spoke all kinds of different places. Over the summer, he had one of those big revival tents that he would travel with. And so it meant that every summer we would have a month of services in 2 different places. So that's 2 months of services every summer that I'm sitting in. And then there were a bunch of local churches that he went to. So there's at least another month or 2 of services that he's having. I'm sitting in 3, 4, sometimes 5 months of services every single year. Like, I know the story of the gospel. I know the Bible. I can tell the kids at school about all of this, right? But one night I'm sitting in the service and I think, you know what? I know there's a problem between me and God. I know that the way that I am, I'm a sinner and I can't be there. I can't get into heaven. Just because I'm a preacher's kid and just because I don't do all the other things that the rest of the kids in the school do, doesn't change the fact that God and I are not on good terms. And that's not his fault. And so I thought, I want to be right with God. And I'm struggling with this. And just because I know about the Bible, I know about the gospel, I know all of these things, I'm struggling with it and I can't make it work. I can't get it to work for me. And it was at that point that I realized that there's a reason why I can't make it work. And that is because I can't do it. If I'm going to have a relationship with God, it's going to take someone else to do it. In the same way that I'm in the water and I can't swim, the only way I'm coming out is if someone else comes and gets me. My salvation is completely dependent on Jesus Christ, right? That's what Romans 5 and 6 says. For when we were yet without strength, in due time, Christ died for the ungodly. And that's what I realized. It's the same story. Powerless and without strength. The work was all done by somebody else. And that's where my relationship with the Lord comes from. So here I am. They pull me out. I'm on the beach. They take me from there. They air flight me up to Norfolk General Hospital. And things are kind of touch and go for a little while. I was sharing with some of the folks here. I am originally from Philadelphia. and please don't hold that against me. If you really need to know, come talk to me afterwards, and I'll let you know that when I got married, my wife says, you've got to become a fan of all the Pittsburgh teams. So I will root, the deal was I'll root for all of the Pittsburgh teams as long as they're not playing Philly. And there's a disclaimer that goes with that as well. You come talk to me afterwards. But from Norfolk General Hospital, they sent me up to McGee Rehab Hospital in Philadelphia. Now, I will say this, truly, when people in Pittsburgh heard that I spent 6 months at McGee Hospital, I was like, yeah, so you want to tell us about that? But it was, while I was in that rehab setting, that I was really having some struggles with God. Because I'm thinking, I'm laying there and I'm reading different books and having people share different thoughts with me from the Word of God. I got a book about a guy named Dennis Bird, and his book was called Rise and Walk. Really super inspiring book, right? And it's about, he breaks his neck during an NFL football game. And they tell him, you're paralyzed and you're never going to walk again. And through perseverance and dedication and sheer will, he is able to get up and he walks out of rehab, right? That's a great story. It's a very inspiring story. And I read this while I'm in rehab. I'm like, I'm going to do that. I got one better. That is, I have the God that created the entire universe on my side. I have faith in the one who parted the Red Sea, the one who walked on water, the one who fed 5,000. Like, that's my God. And so I'm praying. And I'm like, Lord, you don't have to fix me all at once. I'll take it in small increments. As a matter of fact, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask, and all I need, just give me a sign, and here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking down at the end of the bed, and I can see my feet sticking out, right? My toes are right there sticking out the end of the bed. I said, Lord, all I'm doing is I'm asking for a wiggle, okay? Just let me see that toe wiggle. Now, for those of you that don't have a spinal cord injury, just think about this. When you go to wiggle your toe, like, it just happens. You don't have, like, a conscious thought about it. It just wiggles. It just happens, right? Well, now I'm trying to figure out how to make my toe wiggle, and I'm looking, and then I close my eyes and I pray. And then I peek, and nothing. And night after night, I'm laying in bed, I'm praying, I'm looking, and I'm waiting to see my God at work. And I got nothing. And it wasn't until one day my dad came in and just happened to be sharing as a friend of his, and shared this with me. He said, you know, as great a miracle as it would be for God to heal Rob's spinal cord, it might even be a greater miracle for Rob to live life with limitations and honor God with what he's got. So I said, okay, Lord, that's really great, and that's really nice. I mean, if you want to do that, that's okay. If you'd like to heal me, I'm okay with that too. But it's that understanding that here's what God has promised, right? God has never promised to fix all of our problems. God has never promised that he's going to make your path easy. What he has promised is this: whatever you are going through and wherever you are, I will be there with you. Right? Isn't that what Isaiah says? When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Through the floods, they will not overflow you. And when you go through the fire, you will not be burned. Like, why? Because I am with you. That's it. And so I've kind of come to an understanding of, all right, this is where I am. And came to an understanding like, okay, there's not a whole lot that I can do. Let's flip that around. There's a whole lot that I can't do, right? So my spinal cord injury is at the C5-6 level, which means I've got feeling from about my chest up. And anything from there down, not a whole lot of feeling. Even in my arms, I've only got limited use of my arms. I've got my biceps, but not my triceps. My wrist, right? I have the ability to pull my wrist up, but the other way, I don't have that. So I've got all of these limitations, and in some ways, it's kind of an understanding of where I am And with what I've got, how do I make that useful to the Lord? Again, my dad comes in and he was struggling with this too. And he shares a story with me. And I'm going to share it with you, and I hope that it's an encouragement to you. He said, because what I didn't know is my dad had not been sleeping at night. Like, he's at home and he's struggling because he believes in the same God that I do. And he's like, Lord, what are you doing? This doesn't make sense. And one night the Lord gives him something. And he wrote it down and he came in and shared it with me. And he calls it the story of the master builder. And the master builder is putting together this giant construction project. And in this construction project, there are all kinds of laborers and there are all kinds of people with all kinds of specialties. And there's this one young man who's coming in and he's got a toolbox that is just loaded with tools. And he's starting to learn how to use those tools. And one morning, this young man shows up for work and he opens his toolbox and like 80% of the tools are now missing. And he goes to the master builder and he says, we got a problem. There's been a theft on site. Somebody stole my tools. The master builder says, actually, no, I took them. It's like, why would you take away the tools? Like, I'm just learning how to use them. They're all shiny and wonderful and new. And like, I believe that these were ones that you gave me. The master builder says, listen, with all the tools that were in your toolbox, you were never going to be able to master all of them. What I have done is, don't worry about the tools that I've taken from you. You look at what I have given you, and I want you to become a master craftsman with the tools that you have. Additionally, I have a work for you, and the work that I have called you to requires the tools that I have given you. And the place that I have for you to work is a place that you couldn't get with a big, giant toolbox loaded to the brim. In order for you to do what I want you to do, and in order for you to go where I want you to go, I've given you exactly what you need. Yeah. Well, so I take all of this and, kind of, where has God brought me to? Okay? It's amazing to be able to share. God's at work in my life. God's doing amazing things. And it's with limitations. It's not in spite of limitations. It's exactly where God has put me. So let me just share with you, where am I today? At our local church, I am, youth ministry director, Sunday school superintendent, whatever it is that you want to call it. My wheelchair is like a kid magnet. Wherever I go, kids are like, whoa. All right, and then their parents are like, don't stare, don't let me stop. And I'm like, hey, you know what? It's all right. And I think it's really a cool opportunity for me to be able to reach out to kids and say, hey, I'm just a regular guy. I'm here, and like, don't be afraid of the wheelchair. Don't be worried about this. But every Sunday, we send out buses into McKeesport, and we're picking up kids that are underprivileged. And they get off the bus, and the doors on the church open, and what I hear is, Mr. Rob! Right? That's using what I've got to do a work for the Lord. And I think about this, that for me, I've got these kids, and I had an argument with a guy at church a couple months ago. And he's like, Rob, we gotta help these kids. These kids are underprivileged. We gotta teach them, like hard work will get you, you can better yourself and I'm like, no. There is one thing and one thing only that I want these kids to get out of when they come to church, and that is, I want them to have the Lord. Because every single area of life that they deal with, that is the only thing that will help them and only thing that will sustain them. Let me give you guys a challenge on this though, right? The kids that come into our church, I've often thought, I represent God to these kids. These kids come to church because it's the house of God and the people of God. And what kind of sketch would they draw of God based on what they see of Him in me? Think about that as you're welcoming in whoever it is. The other thing I've thought about is this. I've got 3 kids, and not every day is an easy day. There are days, pardon my bluntness for saying this in church, there are days life sucks. It's hard. And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and it's going to be exactly the same thing. And the day after that, it's going to be the same thing. And that's not easy. My wife is an incredible lady, and she says to me, like, okay, you look at your life and you tell me what you're missing. This is her words, not mine. She says, you've got a beautiful wife. You've got 3 beautiful kids. You've got friends that love you. You've got a church that needs you. You've got a God that provides for you in every circumstance. Tell me again about what your life's missing.
Amen.
Not a thing. And this is actually, as I think about it, what do I want to leave for my kids? I want to leave a legacy for them, right? Hebrews 13, whose faith will follow, considering their end, considering the results of what they're doing. Now, I'm doing all this from a wheelchair, which means that when it comes to following me, it's kind of like following the trail of a slug. There's no footsteps, there's no anything, it's just tire marks in there. All right? As a matter of fact, the cover for both of my books, the cover for Still Walking, it's Footprints in the Sand, and you guys know the story of Footprints in the Sand. The cover for Still Falling is actually Footprints in the Snow. And what I thought about that is this. In wintertime, when you're out walking in the snow, there's adversity, right? It's hard to walk in snow. And on top of that, there is hidden dangers. You can't see the rocks, you can't see the ice. There's a lot of stuff that the snow hides. And so it's dangerous walking in the winter. Additionally, it's much more likely that you're going to fall in winter than it is that you're going to fall in summer. And when you fall in winter, it is much more important than you get back up. If you fall, like you're walking on the beach and you fall in the sand, right? You lay there, you get a suntan. It works. In the wintertime, you walk in the snow, you slip, you fall, you stay there, you get frostbite, you get hypothermia, you freeze to death, right? When you are walking in winter, it's dangerous. And when you fall, it's important that you get back up and keep going. All that being said, it's also possible that when you're walking through winter and you're worried about all of the obstacles and all of the dangers and what happens, don't miss out on the fact winter's beautiful. There is nothing like looking up. Listen to what I said here. Nothing like looking out the window at the freshly fallen snow, right? Being out in it, not quite my thing, but there is the beauty of winter that makes sure that we don't miss what God's doing around us, even though the world is against us. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop right now. I've got a couple of minutes that we can do some question and answer, and after that, I will give you kind of a closing thought for today. Anybody got any questions for me right now?
Rob,
Yeah.
Do you drive a car?
You've hit a sore spot.
I couldn't drive before.
I have an amazing van that I drive, okay? It's awesome. It has a lift in it. I get right in this wheelchair. I drive right from the chair. And my van, I got it last April, and it has 40,000 miles on it already, right? I'm not sitting around waiting for grass to grow under my van or whatever. However, the Lord has been teaching me patience. In September, I had an electrical problem with the vehicle. And I sent it to the place that installed the hand controls, and they said, no, it's a Chevrolet problem. And Chevrolet said, no, it's a hand control people problem. And they argued hand control GM. And it turns out that it's actually a problem with the people that lowered the floor in the van. They are out in Minnesota. My van has been out of commission for the last 8 weeks. And it just got flatbedded out to Minnesota, and it's going to be out of commission for another at least 4 weeks. So the answer is yes, but not right now.
Sounds familiar about cars.
That being said, the Lord has provided, when the van went out to Minnesota, they actually gave us a loaner vehicle. So I can't drive it, but the Lord gave me my son, who's able to get me here today to be able to share what God's doing. Do I still keep in touch with a friend? Absolutely. I see him probably once or twice a year. And yeah, so it's amazing because what I learned about friendship and fellowship during my time in the hospital, there are no people like God's people. Okay? I worked at UPS, and I had a bunch of guys that I was friends with there, and I can safely say that I can count on one hand the number of visits that I got from my coworkers. I cannot count the number of my fellow believers that came in just to encourage me, to pray with me, to share with me, and to be able to talk about the fact that God is good and God can be trusted no matter what's going on. Yeah, Jerry.
When you have had this happen, does your high mountain and low valleys, have they leveled out now, or are they still very high and very low?
So Jerry's asking about high mountains and low valleys. I'm going to go way back to the beginning, okay? The very first thing that happened after my injury, the very first conversation I had was with my girlfriend at the time. And I said to her, like, listen, I don't know what the future holds. It holds a lot of limitations. If that's overwhelming for you and you need to leave, I give you permission. I said, I don't know what you're feeling towards me, but if you're just feeling sorry for me, that's not the foundation for a long-term relationship. It's okay, you can leave. And I don't know what kind of pressure you're under from other people, but they're not a part of us. This is about you and this is about me. And right now, I said, listen, it's about you. Whatever you need to do to take care of yourself is fine with me. And she got really mad, and with tears in her eyes, she says, listen, what I love about you has nothing to do with whether you're or not you can walk. I love you for who you are on the inside, and if you think you can get rid of me that easy, you've got another thing coming. So I married her. But what she taught me from day one is this. This does not define me. It's about heart, it's about character, it's about personality. And so, with that understanding, I also having faith and realizing that the Lord is bringing me through this. I don't have a whole lot of highs because every day is an opportunity to serve the Lord. But I do have those lows, and they happen probably once or twice a year. And it's like I said, this is hard, and like, Lord, I'm struggling. And it is, my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. I got in trouble one time because I was at a church and I prayed about God blessing us out of the storehouses of heaven. And one of the guys in the church was like, well, if it comes out of the storehouses of heaven, then it kind of implies that the storehouses of heaven are becoming depleted. I'm like, wait a minute. When Jesus is walking, right, and the woman comes along and touches the hem of his garment, he perceived what that virtue had gone out of him. Does he have any less virtue in it? No. When it comes out of the storehouse of heaven, they are infinite. And we can keep being blessed again and again. And the storehouses of heaven are never depleted, but the Lord provides. And the Lord gives sustenance. And so my valleys, they come. And it is only by the grace of God that we go through those. And understand this, right? My dad came into my hospital room. I've given my dad a lot of credit. I'm going to give you a little insight into how he works. He came into my hospital room and asked, like, so what have you been enjoying from the Word? And I was like, well, I've been enjoying Psalm 23. And it was like his face fell. He was like, and I could tell, he was hoping that there was some, like, this is my interpretation of what happened. There was some obscure scripture that would just show that God had, the Spirit of the Lord had really opened the Word of God up to me and given me something special. And when I say Psalm 23, he's like Psalm 23, that's what everybody gets in times of trouble, right? I'm like, you get that's a gift here. You can't go there. What has been most important to me personally is this. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. Okay? Where does the shepherd go with the sheep? He leads them, which means there is no valley that I'm going into that he hasn't been the first one to be there. Right? He is the one who himself has gone through the valley first. And whatever it is that I'm experiencing, he's been there. And not only has he been there, but he is there currently. And he is there with me. And so I follow. And you know what's beautiful about it? I've thought about this. The valley of the shadow of death, it's dark. I may not be able to see the shepherd. I may not be able to see what's coming. But I can hear his voice. And as long as I can hear his voice, I can follow his word. And that's all I've got for moving forward. So